Today is the first day of school for students across the border city, and with that, drivers should keep their heads up while driving in a school zone. School zones are now busier with kids getting back to class, and SGI wants to remind drivers of a few precautions to take while driving in a school zone.
In school zones, definitely want to avoid those U-turns. Many communities have bylaws specifically prohibiting them. If you're approaching a school bus, maybe on a rural road and it's got its stop arm extended, you need to stop. If it's got its amber flashing lights going, you need to slow down, proceed with caution only when it's safe.
A 30-kilometer-an-hour speed is posted in all school zones, and if you get caught going above that, you could get a hefty ticket.
In Saskatchewan, if you're traveling at 20 kilometers per hour over the limit in a school zone, that ticket will cost you $310 plus 3 demerits, which is more expensive than a regular speeding ticket. Of course, the real reason we want to avoid speeding is not to avoid one of those expensive tickets. That's a happy side effect, but we want to avoid a collision that might injure or kill somebody.
McMurtry also reminds parents to give their kids safety tips for walking in school zones or around the community.
It really boils down to the age-old nugget of look both ways before you cross the street and only cross where it's safe. We want kids to, of course, cross at crosswalks, take advantage of those crossing guards if they're there, or any pedestrian crossing lights. But even if it's at a regular crosswalk, looking both ways, making sure that that traffic is coming to a stop, that you've made that eye contact with the driver and that they know that you're about to cross.
Even though vehicle and pedestrian collisions in school zones are rare, SGI wants motorists to still be attentive while driving. Students on both the Alberta and Saskatchewan sides of the border are now back in school. Stacey Comer spoke with Alberta's education minister to find out about how everything came together to get a plan in place for the school year.
I'm happy to be joined today on Primetime Local News by Alberta's Education Minister, Adriana LaGrange. Adriana, thank you so much for joining us here today.
My pleasure, Stacey. Happy to be on the program.
Well, now this has been a really busy week with kids getting back to school. What's it been like dealing with all the changes in education and having to deal with all the plans that have been ever evolving with COVID to try and get a solid plan for kids to get back to schools?
Well, you know what? Having learned so much last year, I certainly see the difference from last year to this year. Last year, we were going into a school year with not even having the certainty of a vaccine on the horizon, whereas this year we do have a vaccine on the horizon. We have millions of Albertans who have chosen to be vaccinated, and that is certainly showing up in the numbers of lower numbers of hospitalizations and ICUs. So it is having a huge impact. And so therefore, we are able to have our students come back in a more normal school setting. They will be able to take part in, drama and extracurricular activities, sports, some of the things that they haven't been able to do in the recent past. So I'm so excited for them. I see an energy across the province. I've been able to travel on my school tours, on my minister's tours across Alberta over the last number of weeks, and teachers are excited, students are excited, parents are excited. I know there's still a little bit of apprehension, but we've learned so much from last year, and we are going to continue to have those safe measures in place. We also have a vaccination program within our schools. It's going to start next week, September 7th. Where AHS will come in and provide easy access to vaccinations for those students and staff that are 12 and older who have yet to be vaccinated. Should the parents approve, they have to have parental consent for sure.
Now, obviously, we probably can expect some changes and some challenges going through the school year, just with the way things are likely to play out here. So how does that work with your office? Do you work closely with certain contacts within the divisions, and then when things happen, you just deal with them as they come, or are there contingency plans? How does that exactly play out?
We have a very detailed going back to school plan. We had one last year. We have a new one that was put forward in June, School divisions have been working with that to customize it for their own school authorities. We also did a health update mid-August where Dr. Dina Hinshaw and her team provided additional health guidelines. And so that has contingencies plans if all of a sudden we have outbreaks in certain areas. We also have the availability to go to online learning should it be required. We had to take that measure a couple of times last year, particularly because we had operational issues. We were running low on substitute teachers, bus drivers, that sort of thing. So we work very closely with our education partners and the school authorities. My department is always in contact with superintendents and principals, and knowing what's happening on the ground, they feed that information to us. So it's a very close relationship. And of course, we work very closely with Alberta Health as well. At the local level, school divisions work with their regional medical officers of health. And then it also can come to our provincial level where we take a broader look with Dr. Dina Hinshaw and her team. So it's a very close relationship. We continue to monitor because, as we've always said, and we will continue to say and do, the safety and security of our staff and our students is our number one priority. So we're going to just keep focusing on keeping our schools safe.
Now, you've had a chance over the summer. I see you've attended a number of school openings and other events. What are people saying out there? Are they happy with the way things are going? Are they just kind of relieved that we're seeing some normalcy? Or what are the people talking to you about when they come to talk about education?
They talk about what they're hearing from their, from their parents and from the general community. And overwhelmingly, it has been positive that children want to be back in school. They're excited to be back with their peers. They're excited to be able to attend sports events and really live a more normal life. They realize COVID is still a part of our everyday vocabulary, but learning to live with it is something that they're wanting to do as a general population. I've had the chance to, as you say, go across the province, and overwhelmingly, I am hearing that people want to return to a more normal life. They also want to make sure that they protect each other. And so, they realize that vaccines are safe and that they're effective and that they're saving lives, and that we have seen a positive impact on the number of hospitalizations and ICU numbers, and they want to do their part. So Albertans are really, they're really great at looking after each other. And so if masks are required, they said they'll do whatever is required to keep each other safe. But overwhelmingly, teachers and administrators and the students themselves and parents, they're happy to be coming back to learning in an in-person way. And again, I just want to thank all the teachers, administrators, the school system as a whole, our bus drivers, our caretakers, everyone within the education system, because they really are focused on providing that great experience for our children.
All right. Well, thank you so much for speaking with us today. And we're all hoping for a nice, calm school year. And hopefully it just, plays out that way you said, with all the measures in place and such, that it's just going to be a really great school year for the kids. So thank you so much again for speaking with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Much of Lloyd Mall remains closed to the public after a water line break 2 weeks ago. Now the mall has canceled an event that was planned for later this month. Jace Mackey has more on what's open and what's not.
As two restoration companies work to repair the damage done to the inside of Lloyd Mall caused by a waterline break on August 15th, the mall is closed until further notice. Stores with exterior entrances such as Safeway, Ace Liquor, Dollarama, and Shoppers Drug Mart are the only stores open right now. Crews are working around the clock to reopen the mall safely, and people we spoke to are hoping it happens sooner rather than later.
It's very unfortunate. I feel terrible for the businesses that are losing revenue at this busy time of year for them back to school.
I'm not from Lloyd, I don't live in Lloyd, so it was a little bit of a last minute thing.
We love coming here on Sundays when we're closed. We bring the boys here to get haircuts and stuff, so we're really looking forward to the mall being reopened.
The mall shared some more difficult news this week, announcing that the Wild Rose Show Fair that was planned to take place from September 16th to the 19th at the mall's parking lot had to be cancelled as crews continue to deal with the significant damage to the mall. Some retailers are adapting to make the best of the situation. Both Warehouse One and Bootlegger have opened up a temporary location at the Cornerstone Shopping Centre, while other retailers are encouraging people to check out their online stores. Lloyd Mall has not said when they expect the mall to fully reopen, but they continue to provide updates on their website and social media pages. But for now, it's a waiting game. For Primetime Local News, I'm Jace Mackey.
Now Shelby Clark will take a first look at your weather forecast. Thanks so much, Jazz. So now taking a first look at your weather forecast here in the border city, we are sitting at 16 degrees with a mix of some sun and cloud, but it was very cloudy this morning, and that sun started to finally peek behind those clouds there later on through the day, but there may be a chance of some showers later on as we go overnight as well. But now taking a look at temperatures across the region here in the provinces. On the Alberta side, Provost is seeing a high of 14, as well as St. Paul, Marwayne, and Lac La Biche, a little bit warmer there. Bonnyville and Cold Lake are seeing 16 and 18 degrees. Vegreville and Edmonton are a bit cooler at 11-degree mark there, and Wainwright and Vermilion are at 12 and 13 degrees. And now over on this side here, a little bit warmer up in Isle Lacrosse and Green Lake at that 21-degree mark. 16 in Meadow Lake and St. Walburg and Maidstone. Pearson is seeing 18 degrees and Macklin is seeing 15, while North Battleford is the warmest there at 19 degrees. But now, speaking of North Battleford, overnight they will be going down to a low of 11 degrees overnight with a lot more clear skies. But tomorrow they will be seeing a lot more cloudier skies rather than what they saw today, with a high of 16 tomorrow. And over in Cold Lake overnight, they will be seeing a high chance of some showers there overnight with a low of 10 degrees with a lot more cloudier skies, which will probably be moving into tomorrow with a high of 17 with some rain there as well. But now speaking of the school day forecast, with the first day back to school, the second day for the kids tomorrow, they will be starting off with a chance of showers there, starting off with a high of 12 as they head to school there at 8 a.m. and recess if they are going outside. Maybe pack an umbrella there in their backpack for them when they go outside. But at lunchtime and around when they leave, it will be warming up just quite a bit there to a high of 14 and 15, but with a lot more cloudier skies. And now taking a look at our 3-day forecast here in the border city. On Friday, we'll be starting off this long weekend with a high of 20 on Friday with a mix of some sun and cloud, but we are going to be warming up just a little bit there on Saturday with a high of 22 with a lot more sun. That's our first look at your weather forecast. We'll have more news coming up after the break. Welcome back. Farmers across Saskatchewan are in the midst of harvest, with over a quarter of fields already completed. Jillian Code has more.
Today on Primetime Local News, I'm talking with Matt Struthers, who's a crop extension specialist with the government of Saskatchewan. We're talking about the crop report for the end of August. So Matt, where are crops at in the province of Saskatchewan right now?
So last week we were sitting at 29% of the crop now harvest, up from the previous week of 20%. So we only saw a small jump of 9%, and that was mostly due to just the rains we did receive that week, and they just slowed a lot of guys down. Unfortunately, the crops before that rain weren't looking very good, and then now, of course, after the rain, especially some durum crops and other cereals and some pulses that are probably left out there have bleached a little bit, they're stained, and are probably going to be downgraded. But to the extent of I don't think anyone was having number one grades out there anyways, so it's unfortunate, but at the same time, it's not surprising. So it's raining again today in parts of the province, so that'll probably slow down producers again, but lots of combines out and rolling, so it's looking good. Lots of stuff to come off, and yield and quality, not surprising to anyone, are quite low.
And Mother Nature seems to work in mysterious ways. Farmers didn't get the rain when they wanted it. As soon as they're deciding, all right, fine, I'll harvest, Mother Nature comes down with the rain. So rain at this point in the season, what's that going to do to crops and the soil?
Yeah, so it's got advantages and disadvantages, of course. And I would have loved to see this rain in July when we really could have used it. We would have had a totally different year if that happens. But of course, like you said, it's just Mother Nature playing tricks on us. So yeah, for the soil, it's great. It's going to recharge going into the fall and into the winter, and then we'll use that in the spring. Hopefully, it sticks around long enough. There's been some windy days, so some fields dried out pretty quick. But yeah, for any standing crop, it might keep stuff a little bit green. Yeah, that's still green, and so it'll slow down harvest that way, and then also just raising the moisture content of certain crops can downgrade and fungal pathogens and all that good stuff. So it's not really great, but it's just the cards we're dealt right now. The biggest advantage is for pastures. It's gonna help in any cool days. It's gonna help the grass rejuvenate and regrow, and hopefully extend that grazing period into the fall just a little bit more, and really stretch that feed out for those producers, and then just give that grass a chance to recover before the winter. And then next spring, hopefully it's got enough to just bounce back really quick and have a much different year than this year. So a lot of advantages. And then another one is depending on how much it's rained and how much runoff there was. Last week there were some areas that got 4.5 inches of rain, and a lot of it ran off of the dugouts. So that's really good to see, and hopefully that's relieves some stresses of some livestock producers.
And you said earlier that we're at 29% harvested already. September's barely started. Where does this compare to previous years?
Certainly not this far ahead. Let's see, I got to read in my sheet, but the 5-year average is 12%. That was for last week. So I think this week the average is probably up around 20 or so, maybe a little bit higher, but we're well ahead of that. Anyways, because I suspect that this week's average will be maybe close to 40. Who knows? It depends on how much rain the rest of the province got, but certainly down here in the south, a lot of combines been rolling. So we're well ahead of where we usually are, and which is not necessarily a good thing. So.
And I'm sure a lot of farmers are definitely wanting to put this year behind them. At least we're getting rain now, so maybe it's a optimistic first step for next year. Maybe it won't be so dry. Matt, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks, you too. Take care.
Now we'll take a look at your egg prices. Canada has won the Women's World Hockey Championship for the first time in nearly a decade with a 3-2 overtime thriller against the rival Americans.
Trying to get the puck. Here's Marie-Philippe Poulin. She shoots. Oh, she says she scored.
Marie-Philippe Poulin scored the winner, but there was some confusion and a video review was called. It was then officially declared a goal. The Canadians played on home ice in Calgary and were unbeaten through the championship. The Edmonton Elks will return to the practice field today to prepare for the Labor Day Classic Monday in Calgary. After around 10 days of protecting the names of players who tested positive, the Elks released a name, and they released a player too. Offensive lineman Jacob Ruby has been let go due to a breach of COVID protocols. The team released no additional information on the breach, but reports indicate Ruby cannot provide proof of his vaccination after he told the team he was vaccinated. Ruby was dismissed during the final day of the Elks' 10-day isolation period. The Canadian player signed with the Elks in 2017. Before this season kicked off, the 28-year-old had signed a contract extension through 2022. But in a written statement, the Elks said the move was part of the club's ongoing commitment to strictly follow the CFL's COVID protocols. Now Shelby Clark will take another look at your weather forecast.
Thanks so much, Jazz. And now taking a second look at your weather forecast here, we'll be starting off with taking a look at temperatures more across central Alberta and Saskatchewan here. In Alberta, Jasper's a little bit cooler at 7 degrees, while Whitecourt is at 9 degrees and Rocky Mountain House is at 8, as well as in Edson. Athabasca is at 13, while Edmonton and Red Deer are at 11 and 10 degrees. So a little bit cooler over on the Alberta side here, but on the Saskatchewan side, they're a little bit warmer there with Meadow Lake at 16 degrees, Prince Albert at 18, while Melfort is at 19, as well as in North Battleford, and Saskatoon is the warmest there at 20 degrees. And now taking a look at the northern region of our provinces here, Uranium City and Stony Rapids are at 15 and 17 degrees. Wollaston Lake's a bit warmer, they're at 21. South End and Flin Flon are at 17, while Flin Flon and La Ronge are at 19 degrees, and Buffalo, Nares, and La Loche are at 20 degrees. Now over on this side here, Peace River is at 11 degrees, while Grand Prairie and Slave Lake are at 12 degrees, as well as in High Level, and Fort McMurray and Fort Chipewyan are at 16 and 18 degrees. And now taking a look at our southern region, they're a little bit warmer down down. Over in Lethbridge and Medicine Hat, 20 and 21 degrees. Banff is at 13, while Calgary is at 14 degrees and Coronation is at 10 degrees. And now over on this side, Yorkton is at 18, while Regina is at 21, as well as in Moose Jaw. Estevan's the warmest there at 25 degrees, and Swift Current and Kindersley are at 20 and 18 degrees. But now as we take a look at temperatures more across the region overnight, we have cooled down just a little bit for temperatures in most places, but as you can see here, most of them will be seeing a chance of some showers overnight. As you can see in Paradise Hill and Meadow Lake, we'll be seeing more of darker skies there, while Bonnyville, Isla Cross, and Pearson, Wainwright, and Myrnam will be seeing more cloudier skies, but Unity and Provost will be seeing a low of 9 and 11 degrees overnight there. And now as we take a look at temperatures tomorrow over across the region, we'll be cooling down just a little bit there for most places there, but Provost and Macklin will be seeing a high of 15 tomorrow, while most other places will be seeing around 15 to 17 degrees, but Isla Cross will be a little bit warmer, seeing 18 degrees tomorrow. And now taking a look at the 7-day forecast for here in the border city. Thursday we'll be seeing a high of 16 and a low of 10, with a high chance there, around a 70% chance of some precipitation, so expect to see some showers there. But Friday we'll be starting off this long weekend a little bit warmer, with a high of 20 on Friday with a mix of some sun and cloud. Saturday we'll be seeing a warmer day with a high of 22 with a lot more sun, and Sunday we'll be seeing a high of 23, but we will be seeing a mix of some sun and cloud on Sunday. And Monday we'll be seeing more sun actually with a high of 21. But as we go into next week, we may be seeing actually a little bit warmer temperatures than we were seeing this week for next week. Tuesday we'll be seeing a high of 23 with a little bit more sun peeking behind those clouds. And on Wednesday we'll be seeing a high of 21 with a lot more cloudier skies. That is a second look at your weather forecast. We'll have more news coming up after the break.
We are back again this week with Stephanie Dobson. Stephanie is a local lawyer and mediator here at Henke Divorce Law and Mediation in Lloydminster. And this is another episode of Healthy, Thriving Families in Two Homes. So Stephanie, today our subject is the division of assets and debts when it comes to separation or divorce. So let's start by talking about how this works for separating families.
Sure. So in Alberta and Saskatchewan, subject to certain exemptions, family property that is owned by either spouse or by spouses jointly is generally divided between them at the end of their relationship. So it's generally divided 50-50. So I've sort of broken it down into about 5 steps of what you do to divide up your assets and debts. So first, we're going to list everything. So all of the assets, all of the debts, and we'll go into it in a few moments, but what are the exemptions? Then second, we're going to value those items. Third, we're going to label which spouse plans on keeping each particular item. And then at the end, we're going to calculate the total of the value of what husband is keeping and then what the wife is keeping. And then at the bottom, we have a calculation, and we're going to see what that math looks like. And sometimes if that math creates a little bit of imbalance, we need to somehow balance it. Now that balancing can either be by way of cash from one to the other, or it can be by way of transferring an asset from one person to the other.
So Stephanie, what types of assets and debts are considered family property?
Well, it's obviously impossible in our interview today to come up with a completely comprehensive list, but let's give a go at it. So some of the kinds of assets that we talk about, things like real estate, so your family home and other real estate holdings, corporate interests, bank accounts, investment accounts, kids' RESP accounts, collectibles, works of arts, or other valuable type of property. We even go into household contents, including not only the things that are in your house, but things that are in your garage, tools, equipment, things that are in your sheds, even life insurance policies that have a cash value. So then when we talk about the debts, debts are usually statement-based items. So things like credit cards, lines of credit, mortgages, car loans, other loans, even things like CRA debt or a bankruptcy debt is also considered family property that would be shared between the two of you.
Does it matter about the location of where the families live? Is it different if you live in Alberta or Saskatchewan?
Yes, in fact, all across Canada, the division of property legislation is provincially based. So in Alberta, there's a particular regime, and in Saskatchewan, there's a particular regime. However, in these two provinces, which is where I practice law, generally speaking, it's a 50-50 division of your assets and debts on separation. So the specifics of what gets divided and what's exempt have slightly different regimes in each province. So generally, if you live in Alberta, you use the Alberta legislation. And if you live in Saskatchewan, you use the Saskatchewan-based legislation. That's, of course, just a generality.
Are there things that aren't included, Stephanie, in the division of assets and debts?
Well, we touched on the word exemption a few moments ago. And so there are things that are specifically named in each of the Alberta and Saskatchewan legislation that are not to be divided between two separating spouses. And there are things that are to be partially divided only between two separating spouses. So each province has a different list of what's shareable and what's not shareable. The key to any, we call it an exemption. So the key to any exemption is to make sure that you can trace that exemption from when you first got that item, when you first received that item or purchased that item, to where that item is today. Maybe it was you got money and then that money was used to buy a vehicle or a hot tub or a down payment on a house, and then that house was sold and then such and such happened. So it's that tracing that's really the key to keeping things out of your division of property.
Now, when couples are going through this process and they're looking to divide their property, does it matter if they're married or just living together? Is there a difference between those two statuses?
Well, before January 1st of 2020, there was a huge difference between the provinces of Alberta and Saskatchewan as to how they treated married versus unmarried cohabitating people. So in Alberta, before January 1st, if you've separated before January 1st of 2020, we apply the law of what's called unjust enrichment. It's what I also call the it's not fair rules. So that means that generally speaking, if you lived like a married couple and you acted like a married couple and you used your finances and acquired property like a married couple, the it's not fair rule says it's not fair that you separate and one person gets to walk away with the bulk of the family property and the other walks away with nothing. So that's pre-January 1st of 2020. After that date, Alberta brought in legislation that allowed unmarried couples who are separating to divide up their assets and debts by law through the legislative authority. Now that's only available to what's called adult interdependent partners. Now that's of course a mouthful and it's a defined term. Within the legislation, if you fall within that category, you may be entitled to divide up your assets and debts just like if you're married. Now, on the flip side, in Saskatchewan, we are being on the border. We always have to look at both comparisons here. For a long time, it's been the law that both if you're married or if you've been living together in excess of 24 months, you get to divide your assets and debts just the same.
All right, Stephanie, a lot of good information in there. And thanks again for speaking with us. We will be back next week with more topics regarding separation and divorce. Thanks for joining us.
Perfect. Thanks, Stacey.
I'm speaking with Clinton Murray with Rona Lloydminster to speak about the Heroes campaign that's starting today, going throughout September. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
How many years has the Lowe's Canada Heroes campaign been around for now?
We are going on year number 4.
Is there anything different planned for this year's campaign?
No, we just really wanted to make everybody aware that what we're striving to achieve here. After speaking with Malcolm Radke, the CEO of the Lloydminster Regional Health Foundation, we talked about a few of the initiatives that they're striving to support. One of the things they're trying to do is a mobile C-arm X-ray machine, which would be mobile in the hospital. A mobile DR imaging machine, which is MRI style imaging machine, which gives doctors almost instantaneous results, and 2 ultrasound machines for the Lloydminster Hospital.
For people who may be unaware, could you expand on what usually happens for this campaign throughout September?
Throughout September, when you come in and make a purchase, you'll be prompted at the checkout to make a small donation or a large donation, whatever you can afford, to be donated to the Regional Health Foundation.
How would you say support was like for previous years from community members?
I don't have the data on the previous years. Last year, we donated just over $6,200 towards Project Sunrise.
Although with the pandemic, do you expect to see strong support for this year's campaign?
Well, we set an aggressive goal. We hope to surpass last year's initiative, and hopefully we can achieve that.
Could you explain where residents could find more information about this online?
You can always search on the Lowe's Canada site. One of the things that you can donate, I think, just at the store level, but the more we can raise, that Lowe's Canada will match up to 50% of the proceeds that we make, up to $2,000. So it's a great support for our region.
And why do you personally believe like it's so important to have this hero campaign again back in the community?
Well, I think it's we are always continuing to try to do better in healthcare. It seems like it's something that we need to strive as a community to pull together and help out as much as we can to get the better equipment.
And is there anything else you want to add for people to know about just for this year's hero campaign starting off today?
No, just that we're committed to building a stronger community, help out our customers and their families so we can have a healthier and better future.
Perfect. Well, once again, thank you so much for joining us today, Clinton.
Thank you.
And we'll now take a final look at your 7-day forecast here on Thursday. We will be seeing a high chance of precipitation tomorrow with some cloudier skies, so make sure you are prepared for that rain. Friday will be starting off this weekend with a high of 20 with a mix of sun and cloud, but we will be warming up on Saturday and Sunday there with a little bit more sun. And Monday we'll be seeing a high of 21 with a lot more sun there, but on Tuesday and Wednesday we will see a little bit more cloudier skies. On Tuesday we'll see a high of 23 with a low of 9, and Wednesday we'll see a high of 21 with a low of 10.
Thank you for joining us on Primetime Local News, and have a great rest of your night.